Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Yes, please don't hesitate to jump in if you weren't on the call when I mentioned that. I went to a conference this weekend and lost my voice. So I was hoping that it would be fully returned by today, but as you can tell, it's pretty scratchy. So I'm going to be going a little slow and sipping on water. But I would love for this to be an open discussion and sharing ideas. I'm here just to guide you guys through some ideas and some general concepts of mindfulness. Randy, and I think she's not on anymore. Someone, I don't remember her name, they're leading I think it was Cecilia, are leading a mindfulness workshop that they invited you guys to. So it looks like you already have some people there in the club that are interested in this practice. So I'm excited to share these discussions with you guys. But my name is Jennifer Carr. I am a landscape, nature, and travel photographer and photography educator. I currently split time between Seattle, Washington, and the Mid-Atlantic coast, so Virginia and North Carolina. I am currently in Seattle, which is why it's sunny still. And that is where I am. Since COVID, I have mostly been working on my education platform, as well as traveling and exploring locally, getting to know the Seattle area, and also spending times on the beaches of the Mid-Atlantic. I have a home on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. If you haven't been, I highly encourage you to go. It's beautiful in a different way from the beauty that you guys are used to in Colorado, as well as visit us out here in Seattle. I moved to Seattle in February of 2020, right before the pandemic started. And we pretty much spent the first 6 months living here inside our apartment or outside on the trails. So I've spent a lot of times hiking around here, getting to know nature in this area, which has been a complete change from growing up on the coast in Virginia. So I'm glad to share that with everybody. I have a background in portraiture as well as commercial work, but my true passion lies in nature and landscape photography. I started photography in 2007. My husband and I had bought a house a few years earlier, and I wanted to decorate the walls with beautiful photographs, but we were young newlyweds and didn't have the money to afford the photos that were available at the art shows. So my husband said, hey, why don't we get you a camera and a few books? This was back in the days of books. And so that's what we did. I got Brian Peterson's Understanding Light and spent the next few years learning how to take pictures. So I am a mostly self-taught photographer. I've had plenty of mentors over the years, though, who have helped me in my journey. I started doing art shows in 2009. And through that, I started expanding to education. I have one of my very first mentoring clients has actually joined us today, Janet. I'll give you a little shout out. Thank you for being here. She's always a huge support for me. Her and her husband, I met them at an art show, and we started doing in-person photography lessons when she was learning how to use her camera. And it's just been incredible to see her growth over the years. I currently offer commercial work and mentoring, as well as host women's photography retreats on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I am a Sony photographer, and I am also a Lens Baby ambassador. So that is me in a nutshell. I am a volunteer mentor with Click Community, which is an online photography forum. If you're not familiar with it, I highly encourage you to check it out. We've got a great group of people over there sharing lots of tips and information. And that's my photography journey. My journey to mindfulness came, I was mentioning this to Randy earlier. I started in 2015, I taught an in-person course at a conference. And at the time, I didn't realize that what I was teaching was the practice of mindful photography. But as I began to study yoga and the philosophical benefits of that, as well as meditation, and I got a certificate in mindfulness, and I realized that the methods and the ways that I photograph the world are following the principles of mindfulness. So I'm going to jump into a presentation that I have prepared for you guys to talk about mindfulness and developing a mindful photography practice. Does anybody have any questions before I move on? Feel free to pop them in the chat or raise your hand. I'll also take questions afterwards. So if you don't know, that's fine.
Yeah, the chat is just says hello to
Perfect.
you. So
Awesome.
I think we're good.
Yes. Thank you for monitoring that for me, Ellen.
You bet.
All right. Share my screen. Go back to talking about that wonderful photography and see if this actually works right away, or the wonderful technology. Okay.
There we go.
Everybody see the presentation?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, I have some notes up on my iPad over here that I'm going to use as well, but let me see. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. Oops, jumped forward. Okay. So mindfulness, I studied under the instruction of Jon Kabat-Zinn. Jon Kabat-Zinn is the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. He defines mindfulness as the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, or having your brain and your body in the same place at the same time. I much prefer this definition. I feel like it's much easier to relate to in much simpler language. When you're distracted by work, by your to-do list, your surroundings, your attention is constantly pulled in other directions. If your brain is still in the office or thinking about what you need to pick up at the grocery store while your body's standing in the middle of a botanical gardens, you're not going to be able to create images that you're going to be happy with. It doesn't matter how much you know about the technical aspects of photography. If you can't fully focus your attention on your surroundings and your subject, then you're not going to end up with photographs that resonate with you, which in turn aren't going to resonate with your audience. So mindfulness is being in a state of open awareness and attention, and it's directing that attention intentionally towards your subject, towards the environment, and exploring. It sounds like you guys do quite a bit of tips and tricks in the field where I'm sure a lot of technique is shared, but hopefully you can also spend some time exploring these beautiful locations that you live in and getting to know the environment as well. In traditional meditation, breathing is the primary activity. When your mind wanders, you return to the breath. But when you're mindful in photography, observation is the primary activity. When your mind wanders, you bring your attention back to the act of noticing your surroundings. So bringing mindfulness to any activity can transform it into a type of meditation. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I even feel like cleaning is meditative for me. I'm a stress cleaner. And so if I'm stressed out, I literally scrubbed my bathroom before we got on this call because I was like, I'm nervous. I had to get out some of that energy. So that's something that can be meditative for me. Walking can be meditative, true meditation, prayer, anything like that is a meditative activity. And by using mindfulness techniques, photography and the act of creating photographs can be a type of meditation. So what is mindful photography? Mindful photography is the process of photographing with the intention to be fully present in the activity. It's more about the process of creating photographs than it is about the resulting images. It's not concerned with technique. It's not concerned with gear. It can be done with your cell phone. It can be done with your DSLR. It can be done with a medium format camera on a tripod where you've hiked in 15 miles. It is something that is made to be intentional with any piece of equipment that you have. Sorry about that. So why practice mindful photography? The practice of mindful photography helps you to slow down and connect deeply with your surroundings. It helps you to see beauty in small moments rather than just in traditional postcard views. You guys live in an absolutely magical place. It's truly spectacular. You're surrounded by beautiful mountains, lakes, 14ers galore. It's wonderful. And it's so easy to just walk up to a viewpoint, set your camera on a tripod, take a picture at sunrise, get back in your car and go to work. But that's not truly being mindful. That's not truly noticing those details, noticing those small moments. And sometimes that's stressful for you. What if you didn't get the photograph that you wanted to get? What if you had all of these expectations of the sunrise and it wasn't what you were seeking? It wasn't what you wanted, and you missed a meeting, or you got up early, or you didn't get a good night's sleep, something like that. The practice of mindful photography makes you slow down, makes you accept things for how they are. And in the process, it reduces stress, it improves concentration, and it boosts gratitude. There's a number of studies out there, particularly with college age students, but I actually, when I was researching this presentation, I did read some studies about elementary age students and also individuals living in adult living facilities where they practiced mindful photography, and the groups were instructed to take 3 photographs a day for 30 days and to journal what they felt while they were taking those photographs. And each one of those individuals at the end of the study demonstrated increased gratitude, increased happiness, and less stress. It's a way for you to cope and manage your feelings in a positive and production manner, which I don't know about you guys, but I definitely need. So I want to talk about the 9 attitudes of mindfulness. This is according to my teacher, John Kabat-Zinn. They're non-judging, acceptance, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, letting go, gratitude, and generosity. And I'm going to talk about each of these individual, but I wanted you guys to look at them as a whole because many of them are overlapping. Many of them can actually really weave together. It's something that it's very easy to build upon. Once you establish one element of practicing one of these attitudes, it's easy to assume and bring in another attitude. So if you, for example, are working on letting go, acceptance and not judgment work hand in hand with those. If you're working on patience, non-striving and gratitude may work hand in hand with that. We're going to get into that. Non-judging. So non-judging means quieting your inner critic. I don't know about you guys, but I know that I am guilty of standing there with my camera in my hand and thinking, I'm not good enough. I don't know how to do X. Or someone took this picture before and did it better than I can do. So why am I going to take this photograph? It's critical, it's judgmental, and it's not healthy. So the practice of non-judging allows you the freedom of quieting those doubts, quieting that critic, just holding on to your camera, taking a photograph of what appeals to you, what you find beautiful in a scene, what you're attracted to, not worrying about how Jane photographed it, not worrying about what somebody on social media posted of that exact same position or location. It's simply allowing yourself to be present in the moment and to actually photograph what you are drawn to. Acceptance. Acceptance is seeing things as they are. It's recognizing that there are things out of your control and being aware of what is in your control. So thinking about some of those things that are out of your control. Location. You know, maybe you get to a location and you got there for sunrise and you thought you were going to be the only one there, and there's a camera club. You know, maybe it's your tips and tricks night, and somebody thought that they were going to come and they were going to do a nice quiet photo walk by themselves, and you guys are, you know, you've got 15 people on the banks and it's distracting to them. You know, it's accepting that. It's accepting that the weather isn't always what you want it to be when you wake up in the morning and you get up and you drive to the trailhead for sunrise. It's those distractions. It's having your kids with you. It's having your spouse with you or friends with you. It's accepting your own personal limitations. My eyes are just recently starting to go downhill. And so I'm increasing my reader number all the time. Like I feel like every day I'm like, oh, need to add another point or two to that, or notch, whatever it's called. You know, accepting that the frustrations of being able to see my LCD screen and through my viewfinder, those are new challenges in my life. I have a cyst in my wrist, and sometimes it just acts up and I don't feel strong enough to carry my camera. I know someone who actually does not have an arm and she takes photographs. It's incredible to see. I've studied blind photographers. I know incredible photographers who are colorblind. Except it's accepting all of these limitations, all of these things that are out of your control, and just saying, hey, outer world, this is my inner world, being okay with that. Next, we have patience. I feel like we could all use some patience most days, right? Certainly something that I need all the time. As a landscape photographer, patience is something that I have had to practice a lot of. It's getting used to that you got to wait for the right moment. Things are going to unfold at their own time. It's observing and watching and waiting. But it's also being patient with yourself. It's allowing yourself space to grow, space to learn, space to make mistakes, space to strengthen your wrist so that you can carry that 150 to 600 and shoot those wildlife on the hillsides out there that you guys have, you know, those mountain goats and the rams. I saw rams one time when I was in Colorado and it was incredible. You know, patience with others who are maybe in your way, maybe on the trail, and you're trying to get up to the you know, to the top of the summit at sunrise and they're blocking the trail. But more than anything, it's just recognizing that too much is out of your control, going back to that acceptance, and just having patience in that current moment. This is my favorite, beginner's mind, looking at the world with awe and wonder, being curious. If you remember when you first started taking pictures, it might have been 2 years ago, it might have been 50 years ago. Everything was new. It was exciting. You didn't worry about doing it wrong because you were just excited to get things right. When you saw a scene and you put your camera to your eye and you took a picture and you looked at the picture, you were like, holy crap, I did it. That's exactly what I wanted to take a picture of. Now, after so many years of taking pictures, it's like, whatever. Or we're too busy being self-critical, or we're too busy comparing ourselves to someone else. Beginner's mind is allowing yourself to be open and to be curious, to experiment and to welcome chance. Trust. Trust your gear. Trust that your gear will support you. Trust that you've made the right decisions in the gear that you've purchased. Trust your knowledge. Trust that you're doing the best that you can. Trust that every day you're going out and trying. Trust your heart. that it's going to lead you towards photographing the things that you're most interested in photographing, or experimenting and learning, that's not what I'm interested in photographing. I did a handful of newborn sessions when I was first doing portrait work. I realized quickly that those were not for me. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Trust works very, very closely with non-judgment and accepting. Trusting that you can walk into a scene and you can use your camera correctly. And if you can't, then you need to go back to beginner's mind and you need to practice that. Because even though this isn't about technique, it's a lot easier to take a picture and be mindful when you're actually familiar with your gear. Non-striving. I feel like this is a really big one right now. You know, we have so much information out there. There's so many photographers. Everyone's a photographer, which is incredible. We should be celebrating that, right? We should be celebrating that everyone is proud of being a photographer. My dad is so proud of himself when he takes a picture. He came out to visit me in Seattle this winter. And when I got home to Virginia, I walked in and he had printed 2 canvases of waterfalls that he had taken on his iPhone that I taught him how to use the live view where you can turn it into the long exposure. And he went to CVS or Rite Aid or Walgreens or something, and he had canvases made of it. That's amazing. So non-striving. It's not being worried about others. It's not competing with others. It's not trying to be who you aren't. It's not being worried about the outcome. It's being present. It's being where you are in this present moment and who you are in this present moment. And it's being proud of that. It's being happy with those limitations and those things that you were accepting. It's, hey, it's raining outside. I'm accepting that. What can I do instead? Letting go. Letting go of missed opportunities. Maybe you overslept. Maybe you didn't make it to the trail in time. You couldn't get up to the summit for sunrise. Maybe you made some mistakes. Maybe you accidentally had your camera on manual focus. You missed focus on everything because you didn't notice. I had to send a camera in to have it serviced. And when I got it back, I just went hiking the next day, didn't think anything of it. Everything was fine. Camera was on manual, took a bunch of pictures, got home. We were at this incredible waterfall, really, really, really deep in the woods though. I mean, it was dark in there. Like I was at ISO 6400. It was dark and I was still underexposing. All of those images were in JPEG. Problem is, I didn't bother to set my white balance because I relied on it being in RAW. So those images aren't very good, but they're still awesome because it was an awesome hike and it meant something to me. It was great for my husband. Am I going to post them on my website? No, but they're a memory for me. So it's letting go of those mistakes. I can tell you the next time that I get my camera serviced, I'm going to make sure that I switch it back to RAW.
Jennifer, if I can tell you, the same exact thing happened to me, except that I didn't go on a long hike. It's just that when I got my camera back, I started shooting with it and went, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I don't know what they do when they service their cameras, but that let everybody know that.
Yeah,
You
it
get
was
your camera
bizarre,
back.
right? Because they
Yeah.
didn't change anything else.
It-
But they did a firmware update. So I don't know if in a firmware update, it must have done that. I have no idea. But yeah.
Well, I'm totally in your camp on that one.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I was looking at those pictures again today, trying to salvage them. And I was like, just let it go. Let it go. Accept the picture for what it is. I showed it to my husband. He was like, ooh, that waterfall looks amazing. He didn't notice that the water looked like it was under fluorescent lights. You know, he doesn't care. He remembers being there. So
Very cool.
yeah. Gratitude. Gratitude is something that we very, very are quick to forget, right? It's something that, again, I said mindfulness was a buzzword, but I think gratitude's a buzzword too. It's gratitude journals and gratitude apps. And, you know, everybody's doing a project with their kids. What are they grateful for from their day? What is their good, their bad, and their ugly? or funny? You know, what are the things that you appreciate about your day? But gratitude's super duper important in our own personal photography journey. It's learning to recognize the beauty in the simple, the everyday things. Life goes really quickly. I had 3 losses in the last year, the last 6 months, really, of some very, very close family members. And we don't know how much time we have. We need to be grateful. We need to appreciate these little things, these little moments. We have the ability to capture them on our cameras and share them with other people and remind them that the tangled mess of, weeds and spider webs that they see are actually really beautiful when the light hits them just right. I bet that there's a handful of you, if not all of you, who have shared a picture of something normal, average, every day, and someone has said, wow, I've never looked at that way before. I spent an afternoon with a friend at a botanical gardens, and we went with the intention of photographing flowers. We were at the wrong time. The season wasn't quite ready yet, weren't quite flowers yet. We photographed spiders. I have never photographed spiders before in my life, and it was one of the most fun afternoons, looking for teensy tiny, those little, like, I don't know what they're called. Somebody probably knows. They're like the little jumping spiders. There's like YouTube channels of jumping spiders. These things are so incredibly interesting. They're beautiful when you look at them through a macro lens, but I'd never paid attention. I'd just been like, ooh, they're spiders, gross. I don't like spiders, but they're truly, truly beautiful. So taking time to notice those little things, be grateful for the world that we live in, be grateful that we have the ability to capture it with our camera. Generosity towards yourself, being proud of how far you've come, being proud of your growth, being proud of the effort that you're putting in, accepting compliments graciously. We're all guilty of that, right? Like, oh, no, it wasn't that big of a deal. Or, oh, I got this dress on sale, right? Like, that's probably one of the most common ones that us women do. Somebody tells you look nice. It's saying thank you. It's complimenting others on their work and their effort. This can go all through life, right? Like, mindfulness isn't just in photography. The more that we practice this, the more it overflows into the rest of our lives. Generosity. So, how do you practice mindful photography? Ellen, before I go on, are there any questions in the chat?
Nope, you're all clean.
Perfect. Okay. So how do you practice mindful photography? I'm going to give you guys a few tips that I like to do. Put it on the calendar. I don't know how many of you have read Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. She calls it artist dates. It's a once a week commitment to yourself, where you're actually going to go out and you're going to work on your art. So whether you are spending 10 minutes, and maybe you don't have once a week, maybe you have once every 2 weeks, maybe you have once a month. We're all busy. We've all got things going on. But if you don't practice and you don't do it, you're not going to get any images. So you have to make the effort. It's like going to the gym, right? You can't actually see the results if you don't put forth the effort. So put it on the calendar, schedule it into your day, whether it's 10 minutes or 2 hours. Prepare ahead of time. Being someone who has a house at the beach, I spend a lot of time shooting sunrise. And sunrise in June, as you guys know, is really, really early, even if you're just walking down to the beach. So it's packing your bag so you don't have to scramble at 4:30 in the morning, charging your batteries, programming the coffee maker, telling your family that you're going to get up, that you're going to do it. That goes back to putting it on the calendar too, making people in your life aware, this is my time, that I'm going to go work on this for myself. Choose a location that you find inspiring. So one of the things that I challenge you all to do, whether you do it tonight or you do it tomorrow, Think about what inspires you. For me, it's 100% being in nature. Anytime that I'm feeling crummy, if I go for a walk in nature, I feel better. Doesn't matter what kind of nature it is. It can be the beach, it can be a mountain, it can literally be the park in front of my apartment building. Choose a location that you find inspiring. Do your best to reduce the noise around you. Put your phone on do not disturb. Do not pull up Instagram. Do not pull up Facebook. Do not check your email. If there's somebody looking to get in contact with you, let them know that you're going to put your phone off for 30 minutes and you'll check it. Slow down. If you put it on your calendar, then you don't need to rush. You don't have anywhere else to be at that moment. My husband and I recently went on a scuba diving trip to Belize, and they would break us up into 2 groups. And on the first day, we went with some friends that we had made at the dinner the night before. And we quickly learned that they were the fast group. They all like to kick really hard, and they like to swim, and they like to just see as much of the reef as they could. We realized we needed to go with the other group because they were the slow group. They were the group that looked in every little crevice, every little crack, every little rock, every little coral formation. And we would cover this tiny little area of the reef, but we would see so much more. The other group would only see the big fish. We would see these tiny little fish, the little cleaner shrimp, the little nudies, the little, you guys, if you've never been underwater, like if you don't stop and slow down, you're going to miss so much. That's how it is on land too. The fallen leaves are in this picture, blades of grass. Last month, I was having one of those days where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to photograph. I've run out of things to photograph. We all say it, right? I've photographed this a million times. I can't photograph it again. So I photographed grass. How many different ways could I photograph grass? Everything is beautiful. So back to how to practice mindful photography. No overshooting. So often we get so caught up in, I'm never going to see this moment again. It's an epic sunset. It's fireworks. I'm really guilty of overshooting fireworks. It's, I'm going whale watching next week. I hope I overshoot the heck out of some whales. If it's Granny's 99th birthday, if it's an event that you'll never get to again, overshoot. If you're taking a walk through a park, overshooting is just going to cause yourself more work, especially if you're shooting on RAW and you have to process all of those images. Stop chimping. You don't need to look at your camera LCD screen every time you take a photograph. This goes back to trust. Trust that you know your gear. Trust that you know how to focus. Trust that you know how to compose an image. That's not to say don't ever chimp. Just don't do it every time. You don't need to do it every time. Don't let your settings stress you out. Don't let your camera get in the way of experiencing what you're experiencing. You guys are all hikers, I think, living where you live. You love the outdoors, you love nature, you have to. You want to experience those moments when you're in there. You don't want to constantly be looking down, scrolling around. I don't know, should I use f5.6? Should I use f8? Should I use f11? Pick a setting. Understand how focal length works with aperture and what lens you're using, and go from there. If you're standing in front of the flat irons, know that you can shoot it at 2.8 if you're far enough away from it. All right, so now I have an exercise for you guys to do. Maybe this is something that you can consider doing on one of your next tips and tricks. I call this seeing begins with observation. This is an exercise that I do at my small group mentoring and at my photography retreats on the first day. Upon arriving at a location, take time to walk around, observe, explore, and investigate. This is not with your camera. I ask them not to use their camera. Once you have looked, look again. Look more intensely. Some people take notes. They like to write down what they're seeing. Look for the visual elements, shapes, reflections, color, contrast, pattern, movement, shadows, highlights. I like to look for where the edge of light hits a shadow. That's my favorite spot. What catches your eye first? Is it color? You know, if something's red, it might stand out from a green background, or maybe it's something bright. What is the environment? What is the atmosphere? Ellen mentioned that it was overcast today. Maybe it's fog on the lake. Maybe it's mist hanging over the mountains. Maybe it's snow.
Yeah, we don't get fog here very often.
Oh, you
It's
guys are
too
missing
dry.
out. Missing out on the fog. It's pretty spectacular.
I would love fog.
Yeah, it's interesting to shoot in. I didn't shoot in it much when I lived in Virginia, so I've had to learn quite a bit about fog over here. Look for where the light is coming from. Are there pockets of light? Where does the edge of shadow meet the light? Understand light. I don't know how many people know this. I hope all of you. But did you know that the word photography means to draw with light? We need light. Light is what makes our images. What is on the ground? What is in the sky? How many of you just stand at eye level and shoot? Get low. What do you see? Can you climb high? Can you find something to stand on? Can you hold your camera above your head? Take a picture. What does that viewpoint look like? I saw something pop up in, I think it was on my Instagram feed today, on how to turn your cell phone into a drone with a selfie stick. It was fascinating. I watched the whole video. It's taking a selfie stick, extending it all the way above, and putting your phone like this with the selfie stick coming out of it and shooting down. It's not obviously as tall as a drone, but it was pretty interesting. It seemed pretty fun. You might have to get a selfie stick just to try it. I've never had a reason to before then, but I might do it.
Jennifer, Randy likes to chime in and say, don't let your camera get in the way of the experience.
Absolutely.
She says that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's echoing something that Jenny said. It just really resonated.
Yeah, I mean, it's too often, you know, even if it's your phone camera, right? Because the second you touch your phone, you're distracted. You know, even if I'm shooting with my phone camera, I try to put it on do not disturb so that I don't see all those 3 million notifications. But it's, you know, where do I press on the screen to get the focus? How do I get the exposure up and down? You know, find something beautiful and take a photograph of it. Know your settings, know what you need to do, try to get them right. But don't fret about that. So I call this game playing I Spy. And so once you've gone through all of this, do it again with your camera and see if it's different. See if you notice something different when you look for visual elements through an LCD screen. Is there anyone who uses an LCD screen instead of a viewfinder? No.
I use both.
Yeah. Do you only use it when you have it on your tripod though? Or do you use it when you're just walking around with it? Your LCD screen?
Yeah, you're right. I only use it when it's on my tripod.
Yeah. Kim says maybe she does.
Yeah, I'm not a fancy professional like a lot of these people. So
No.
I generally use my LCD screen instead of the viewfinder.
Does that help you see better?
What it does is my screen moves. So I can move my camera, like you say, look down, look up, move it in different positions.
Yeah.
So I can see different things where, if it's up above my head, I can't look through my viewfinder where I can see the screen. So
Absolutely. Yeah, Kim, I completely agree with you. I actually just recently got a new camera, and it has, instead of a flip screen, it has like an articulating screen, and I can't tilt it the same way that I'm used to. And that's been a huge adjustment for me because I never realized how often I would hold my camera down or hold it up and I would just tilt it. And now I have to like flip it out. And I mean, it's just one extra step, but it's still, it's something else to think about. So when you look through an LCD screen, you see differently. When you look with just your eyes, you see differently. And then when you put that tiny little viewfinder to your eye, you see differently. Some cameras don't even have viewfinders anymore. Some cameras only have viewfinders. I've got one of these, I have a Yashica film camera that I've been working on. You guys, that's hard. The looking down, the trying to look down and compose as it's coming, for the reflection. It's hard. It's seeing in a whole new way. It's really challenging.
Are you talking about the GMAT 24?
No, this is the single lens reflex, these beautiful old timey film cameras.
It's a twin lens then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm aging myself. I had one of those in high school. That was the yearbook photography camera.
I wish I would have learned on that. That's incredible. I did. I bought this, and I also bought the little point and shoot camera that I had in high school, because I was like, let's go really hard and really easy as I'm working on film.
Sweet.
So anyways, once you do your observation exercise with just your eyes, do it with your LCD screen, and do it again with your viewfinder, and see if you see things differently. I guarantee you will. The other thing with using the LCD screen, as Ellen mentioned, when you just have it on a tripod, that limits your creativity. You're shooting from one height, because more often than not, you're not going to take the time. Maybe you'll shorten your legs a little bit or extend them a little bit, but you're not going to like lay your legs down and lay on the ground. You should.
Speak for yourself. That's what I do.
Well, good. Then I'm proud of you. If you're not shooting long exposures and you're not shooting astrophotography, experiment. Put it on a tripod if you want to for some. Take it off for some. Play with those angles. And I have one of my favorite quotes that I wanted to share with you guys. The ability to be sensitive to what is around you is not something that turns on only when you're out shooting. It should be on at all times. You will be amazed how rich your visual experiences will be, even when you are not photographing. So this goes back to the practice, those 9 mindful techniques, making that commitment to yourself, scheduling those artist dates, doing the observation exercise anytime that you can. Yeah, sometimes you're going to be rushing, or sometimes you're just going to see something beautiful and you're going to grab your camera and you're going to take a picture of it. But on those artist dates, put intention behind it. The more that you practice it, the more second nature it will become. That's it. That's what I've got today.
Well, I thought that was great.